It takes balls to go to a foreign country for a debate when the entire panel and audience is against everything you say. But that is exactly what Douglas Murray did here, as you'll see at the end. I've only just come across these arguments today, so I thought I'd share them. The faces Douglas pulls as he listens to this guy's utter nonsense are priceless. Douglas Murray gives a sensible, nuanced reply when they try telling him we have nothing to fear from refugees and it's just us being irrational bigots. Of course, most people coming here aren't terrorists. Obviously, that's the case, he rightly says. But that doesn't mean we haven't got legitimate concerns for all sorts of reasons. Mark Lamont Hill then dismisses all those concerns that Murray reels off and says you may have concerns, but it doesn't mean they are rational or well-founded. His opponents literally dismiss everything he has just said and then try and make out it's white men with guns who are the terrorists we should be worried about. He literally dismisses every word Douglas said. Well, was the horror of 9/11 not rational and well-founded? Was the horror of the Manchester Arena bombing and the hundreds of people killed in attacks in France not rational and well-founded? A police officer in Germany was killed in a terror attack only a few days ago. So to brush all that under the carpet is quite disingenuous. The terrorist threat in the UK is set at substantial, which is the middle threat out of the 5 stages as per the Metropolitan Police's own chart. No doubt it's always on that or above. In the last 3 years, out of the 7 terrorist attacks there has been in Britain, only 1 has been right-wing. The other 6 have all been Islamic, many of which were committed by asylum seekers. So the number of attacks in Britain is low, but that doesn't mean there isn't concern, especially if we continue to import people from some of these places. The level of hatred for Western countries on display, while simultaneously demanding that we take in the world, is honestly quite staggering. Take a watch.
The society I'm from is one of the most pluralistic and diverse societies on earth. You couldn't get a larger range of people of different backgrounds and ethnicities and languages than you have in Britain.
And
which is why, once again, if I may push back against this thing you are pushing, which is that these are sort of uniquely bigoted, unwelcoming societies.
Not at all.
The evidence on this part of the stage would suggest that Britain is not,
If anything, I'm giving you the chance to tell us, from your perspective, what you find threatening or not about refugees coming to England.
Let me answer that by broadening, if I may. My suggestion would be, if we're to arrive at any kind of common understanding on this, is that we agree that, for instance, where there are people who pretend that everyone who arrives is a terrorist is barking mad. Okay? We can agree with that, but don't laugh at people with serious concerns about serious security concerns either. Because,
like what?
Well, because you know, we had this in 2015 when certain officials in Europe said the likelihood that anyone coming on the boats among the 1.5 million people who arrived in Germany are going to be violent in any way is total, xenophobic fantasy. And everyone laughed until people started letting off bombs, until, like in Ansbach in Germany, they just had a suicide bombing outside a wine bar. And it just stopped being quite so funny. So all I'm saying to you is, you can agree with me that people who say that most people arriving are going to be violent are ridiculous. Yes, but also don't claim it's ridiculous for people to have serious and sincere concerns about what is happening. Because if you do, there's no way anyone's going to arrive.
And that is the reality. Absolutely, Mark. How do you deal with this? It is a reality. This is,
it's a reality.
People feel.
No, it's a reality that people have sincere and serious concerns. It doesn't mean that the serious and sincere concerns are rational or well-founded. And I understand the idea that this often comes from the extreme, but in the United States, that extreme is the White House.
Yes.
Right? So, Donald Trump himself has been very clear in articulating the particular danger that Syrian refugees bring, despite the fact that they're vetted, despite the fact that they spend time in resettlement centers, but despite the fact that they're actually statistically much less likely to engage in acts of terror.
And he mentioned the Brexit propaganda again, just to scare people toward
this is, again, having lived as a Brit living in America right now, my children were in a lockdown mode at school. They teach them lockdown, right? So that in case of gun violence, your 6-year-old, your 10-year-old, your 18-year-old is taught to go into the corner of the room because of gun violence. The gun violence in America, the terrorism, as we see, is not coming from Mexicans and Latinos and Syrians and Muslims. It's coming from white men, overwhelmingly. And so again, this is a problem.
Our use of language, because in most cases, if it is a white man, it'll be a troubled soul, not a terrorist.
And the second thing is, if we look at Europe, to me, the problem that we need to understand, and it goes back to one of the comments from on the floor, is that it's not actually the first generation. The first generation are often the ones who do want to integrate, and they just want to, at least my experience, you want to keep your head down, go to school, get a job, get going. It is that second generation that has born and grown up, and feels a sense of unbelonging because they're not reflected at all in the education, in the history books, in the art, in the culture, and they are demonized. And that's the community we have to be dealing with and recognize,
Douglas,
and that's the pluralism that none of our societies.
I know you have something to say before I go to Neloufar.
We do have to address that. Every society on earth has difficulty integrating people, okay, from a very different background. Yes. It's always difficult. Again, I don't think we should fall into this idea that Europeans are uniquely bad at it. We've had to do a lot of absorbing very fast, and we've done most of it very damn well. And bits of it haven't gone well, and we've got to address that. But again, we can agree that there is gun violence in America from crazy people who think they need to be armed to walk to the supermarket. And that doesn't mean, well, okay, but that doesn't mean that people in France don't have their own specific security concerns as well. And what I'm urging you to do is, let's not look at this just from an American point of view. In Europe, it is a serious security concern we have now, and we are trying to deal with it, and that shouldn't be laughed at.